Welcome to Terrapin Crossroads, 1975. All right, so we're going to start off with, like every year in the Billboard Top 10, there was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so while the Grateful Dead were being mad scientists trying to create Blues for Allah, this is what was in the Billboard Top 10. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds by Elton John. Mandy by Barry Manilow. Blues
I liked
for Allah,
it.
Mandy, Blues for Allah. You're No Good by Linda Ronstadt. Black Water by the Doobie Brothers. Doobie Brothers, my first concert in 1975. Shining Star by Earth, Wind and Fire. Sister Golden Hair, America. Love Will Keep Us Together, Captain and Tennille. Jive Talkin' by the Bee Gees. Get Down Tonight by Casey and the Sunshine Band. And Island Girl by Elton John. Those are just a few of them, but as you can see, disco was coming on. It wouldn't be long before the Grateful Dead started to explore some disco. Some of the great films that came out in 1975. Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino. Jaws by Steven Spielberg. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The Rocky Horror Picture Show. And Tommy featuring The Who. So in Grateful Dead land, 75 was an odd year, as we know. By the time 75 actually started, they were already 2 months into what would become a 20-month hiatus. I think a lot of fans were wondering if the Grateful Dead would ever get back together.
So was I.
And it was the end of 75 where Garcia was trying to finish a solo record, Reflections, and he was working on Might As Well. And his band that he had put together sort of was crumbling, and he brought in the Grateful Dead to help finish that record. So that was sort of the beginning of the changeover when they started to realize that maybe they wanted to keep making music, and that was the way to go as the Grateful Dead. So, but backing up a little bit, they built a new studio above Bob Weir's garage, and that's where they recorded Blues for Allah. A guy named Stephen Barncard built that studio, and Robbie Taylor, who many of you know, helped Barncard build that space. I think Robbie was soldering everything together for him. He was a jeweler, so Robbie was the master solderer.
Patch in it, all right.
And that soundboard that they had in Weir Studio was custom built because I guess the room was like a triangle shape, and so they couldn't just buy a soundboard. They actually had to custom build it. So again, also in Grateful Dead fashion, they had not road tested any of those songs that were going to be on Blues for Allah. They had never played any of them live. They created that whole entire record in the studio in this small space. And so, Phil, tell us just a little bit about working in that small space and above Weir Studio. No pressures from record companies or anything like that.
It was very cool, but it wasn't. It was for such a small room. It didn't seem crowded or cramped at all. And it's actually contrary to Grateful Dead practice to go into the studio with no material at all. I mean, most of the time we had road tested everything that got written. As soon as it got written, we worked it up, and it went right into the rotation in the live shows, because that's what we did most of, obviously. And but it was really kind of a cool, intimate experience recording in there like that. When we all played together. We didn't like just lay down a drum and bass track and then overdub to it. So, and as cramped as it was really pretty fun. And it was the material just sort of coalesced. I think Jerry and Bob had a couple of sketches of songs, maybe Help on the Way, Franklin's Tower, and Music Never Stopped. Then we just went from there, and expanding all that stuff. And it was really I remember it as being a lot of fun. But I don't think we could. I don't think we mixed down. No, we did. Yeah, we mixed everything. I think we mixed everything down somewhere else.
I know Healy was engineering in the studio with you guys, so I don't know who mastered or did the final mix on it.
Yeah, I still remember mastering or mixing King Solomon's Marbles, the instrumental that I had for that record, and walking out. It was the last thing to get mixed. I walked out the door, got on a plane, and went to Florida to see the last Apollo launch.
Oh, cool.
Apollo Soyuz it was. So
wow.
that's my main memory of that.
So as you know, in 1975, there were only 4 Grateful Dead concerts, and they were all very, very unique in their own way. So the first one was in March of 1975, and it was at Kezar, which was a high school track and field right the beginning of Golden Gate Park.
The
And
49ers actually used to play.
yes, of course, right, yes. In true Grateful Dead fashion, so it was a benefit that Bill Graham put together called the Snack Benefit, and it was to benefit all the schools, and it was Bob
Students
Dylan.
need athletic culture and kicks.
Marlon Brando was there, and but anyway, so this is what the Grateful Dead come out and play in a stadium show. They come out and they play Blues for Allah, Stronger Than Dirt, drums, Stronger Than Dirt, Blues for Allah.
Well, we were working on that.
And then Johnny Be Good, so they had to give the fans up. But like, well, you know, interesting show, and I'm sure everybody was like, what? And then, so the next show that they did was in June of 75, so that was March of 75, and that was a benefit for a poster artist named Bob Freed. It was the Bob Freed Memorial Boogie, and that was actually listed as the Jerry Garcia Band, or Jerry Garcia and Friends, but it turned out to be the entire Grateful Dead. And also Kingfish played, Keith and Donna, and that was like more of a real show, and they were playing more of Blues for Allah. They played Crazy Fingers, and they played Help Out in the Way, Slip, Franklin's, Blues for Allah, Stronger Than Dirt, blah, blah, blah. It was the first... Blah, blah, blah. Okay. They played Sugar Mag and U.S. Blues, but that was the first Crazy Fingers that they played. It was the first Franklin's. It was the first Help on the Way. And on the databases, it's listed as Help on the Way as being completely instrumental. I don't know if you remember that. So, did somebody let some crickets in a box? So then the next show was in August of 75, and I'm sure it's no surprise what that one was. But that was the Great American Music Hall show. That was a record release party, and from what we all understand, it was like an industry event. And you know, you've all been to the Great American Music Hall, or many of you have been if you live here. And you know, it's this incredible, beautiful room. It was a brothel 100 years ago. It's got a sort of
that night it was full of suits.
And they were trying to convince people of something. And of course that record was the record release party, so they played, you know, pretty much everything on the record, the other one and some other great things. And then the last show of 75 was a free concert in Golden Gate Park in Lindley Meadow, which is the one over from Speedway Meadow. Part of Hardly Strictly Bluegrass happens now in Lindley Meadow. It was with the Jefferson Starship, and it's a legendary show. And again, it was also, you know, Help, Slip, you know, Music Never Stopped. Franklin's came later on in the set. Truck in the 11, Stronger Than Dirt, Not Fade Away, Going Down the Road. Another amazing, amazing show with a lot of people. People were really, you know, dying to see the Grateful Dead. And as we talked about before, you know, I think it was the end of the year, and they got back together with Garcia to finish that record, that they really started to realize that they really missed the Grateful Dead, and that was really where their hearts were at.
I missed it the whole time.
Out in Fairfax.
That's a piece of history too. We won't discuss that.
Right. I think we'll just point out that I think they were known as maybe the Heineken years. But they were fun. And so now let's talk a little bit about Big Brown, because as you can see, Big Brown is here. So Big Brown made its debut in 1971. And it's a guild instrument, but it was alembicized. Alembic, who made Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons, the bass that Phil currently plays, totally retrofitted that instrument for him. And from 71 through 74, there were a lot of changes because of making it work with the wall of sound. But by 1975, this really was the instrument that Phil played from 75 to 78 until he, I think, got an Irwin guitar, was what you played next.
Yeah, I think so.
So without further ado, Phil is going to show us some things about Big Brown and what all those crazy knobs and pickups do, and because we all want to know.
You sure you really want to know?
Of course.
This guy just went up to Olympic for a kind of a tune-up and a document documentation thing they wanted to make sure that they had all the records of everything that went in and stuff. And one of the things they gave me that came back with it is a little diagram of what all the knobs do. In case well, this here is master volume. So, it gets louder, it gets quieter. This is the main pickup selector switch. It gives me bass. Let's see. In this first position, that activates this pickup.
Oh, cool.
These five knobs here are to control that pickup. So there's volume, like dry volume with no effects on it. And there's the filter volume, which I can blend to my satisfaction. And you can hear that the pickups are picking up magnetic interference. This is just exactly what was happening in the Grateful Dead movie.
Yeah.
When I was playing with the camera.
Yeah.
So this knob is the frequency.
Freak.
The center frequency of the pickup. This knob is the Q or bandwidth.
The Q.
So it's not that effective. That's not even that lower stuff. That's not even part of the note I'm playing. Stop. So it's almost like a wah-wah, only you have to use your hand. And this switch selects a high pass, low pass, or band pass. So high pass is. That gives you the whole sound of the string, and as I lower the frequency, it just gives you kind of percussion or that's low pass. So if I turn that all the way up. A whole range of tones that I never used. Somebody once wrote on not on a blog because they didn't have any in those days, but some kind of review or something I read. Phil has like 25 knobs on his bass, and yet it always sounds the same. Very perceptive of it. And the whole deal is set it and forget it. So,
What's the deal with the copper pickup in the middle there?
That is the infamous quad pickup.
Yeah.
And we can't.
So that's the pickup that would send an individual string to an individual speaker stack in the wall of sound?
Yeah. And this switch here, the second switch on the bottom horn is and you notice that the quad pickup has a lot of hum in it. They hadn't quite figured out how to make a humbucker quad pickup in 1971. But this other switch here is the distribution of the strings. So if you think of them as numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Don't sound very different, do they? Okay, so this one is pretty clearly pretty much set up. So the top two strings go somewhere that I don't have plugged in. Yeah.
So there's a special 8-pin adapter on the tailpiece here that was apparently made from some sort of machinery from the 1930s, and
Like radio station hardware from the 1930s.
and it was that 8-pin adapter that made the whole wall of sound work.
No. It made the quad pickup work.
Yeah,
We talked about this last week, I think.
yeah. So I think is that the full tour of the bass?
And this is the quad volume knob.
Before we put it down, can we just get one big bad Phil Lesh bass bomb? Like,
Be gentle.